Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 6th Khula Sizwe Annual General Meeting. I would like to confirm that the necessary quorum is present as required by the company's Memorandum of Incorporation and that the meeting is therefore legally constituted. The Annual General Meeting is being conducted in full electronic format in accordance with Section 63(2)(a) of the Companies Act 2008 as amended in the company's Memorandum of Incorporation. Your attendance will be captured through our virtual attendance register. Please note that the proceedings of this meeting are being recorded. The notice convening this AGM was issued on the 29th of April, 2025. The notice contains full details of the special and ordinary resolutions to be considered at this meeting. Proxy voting commenced on the 29th of April, 2025, until Monday, the 19th of May, 2025, for shareholders who were elected to be represented, and these votes will be collated in the session with the meeting specialists acting as scrutineers. All shareholders who are reflected on the share register or who are in possession of a written letter of representation may participate in and vote at the AGM through the link provided to the voting platform, either through their mobile phones or email addresses. Please click on the Vote Now link, which will direct you to the voting platform. Voting will remain open during the meeting until the chairperson declares the close of voting following the reading of the resolutions. Here are a few pointers on how to navigate the Zoom meeting platform. Shareholders who would like to pose questions, please click on the Q&A icon on the bottom of your screen. If you have a question or on a particular resolution, please type the resolution number followed by your question and press Enter or Send. Alternatively, if you would like to address the meeting directly, please click on the Raise Your Hand icon during the Q&A session. Once the moderator or the company secretary has identified you, your microphone will be unmuted and you will be able to address the meeting. Questions and comments will be addressed after all the resolutions have been put to the meeting, and the results of the poll will be announced before the close of the formal business of the meeting. I will now hand over to the chair to formally conduct the meeting and take the shareholders through the proceedings of the meeting. Welcome, Chair.
Thank you, Nelly. Great morning and a warm welcome to all the shareholders and shareholder representatives of Khula Sizwe Property Holdings, that's Khula Sizwe, to this, our 6th annual general meeting here on the 21st of May, 2025. It is our pleasure today to share with you the performance of Khula Sizwe for the year ended 30th September 2024. We will also highlight the key issues with which the management team and the board are seized with. I will chair the proceedings assisted by Ms. Nelly Kituka, the Khula Sizwe Company Secretary, and Ms. Bateti Motibe, the Khula Sizwe Interim MD. I'd like to recap on the Khula Sizwe empowerment transaction. So we felt it pertinent to use the opportunity presented by this AGM to remind you, our shareholders, about the transaction that you invested in 2019. Khula Sizwe originates from a BE transaction sponsored and funded in the main by Balowar Limited, with the express aim of creating a legacy that of a Black-owned and Black-controlled property holding and investment company. To accomplish this task, Balowar sold its property assets as well as those of Balowar Logistics, valued at 2.9 billion to Khula Sizwe. Balowar also once sold its operating properties at a discount of 5%. So instead of 2.9, Khula Sizwe paid 2.7 billion. Balowar advanced an interest-free loan to the Balowar Management Trust to the tune of 199 million, as well as funded the contribution of the Employee Trust to the tune of 174 million. The debt raised from external funders, that's Nedbank, amounted to 2.2 billion or 80% of the total transaction funding. This high loan-to-value was enabled by Barloworld guaranteeing the lease payments for a 10-year period. The resultant structure, shareholding structure of Khula Sizwe was and is 38% the management trust, 32% the employee trust, 30% the black public. As you can see, the structure on the screen, the trusts, which is the management trust and the employee trust, they've got their own governance with their own boards of trustees. As far as Khula Sizwe is concerned, us here, we're reporting to you, our shareholders, as well as the trustees of the two trusts, and we have also received their proxies. So Barloworld entered into a sale and leaseback with Khula Sizwe for a 10-year period, starting 2019 to 2029. Further, the Barloworld support included, one, an 8% lease escalation clause in favor of Khula Sizwe, that's per annum, ahead of the market-related escalation rates, creating a return profile higher than the cost of capital. A 10-year non-terminable lease dispensation, something that is very rare in property transactions. A triple net lease, meaning that Khula Sizwe does not pay for the expenses like the rates, the electricity, etc. Those are paid by Barloworld as well as the upkeep of the properties. To protect its position, Barloworld imposed restrictions on the new property company along the following lines in the 15-year empowerment period. In the first 3 years, no property disposals could be made. During the first 5 years, that's from 2019 to 2024, shareholders were prohibited from selling their shares. And between 2024 and 2034, the sale of shares will be permitted, provided they are sold to black shareholders and the board has decided on a liquidity event. If we pose the question, what was the Khula Sizwe transaction construct? The answer can be summarized as follows, citing Tamela Advisory Services. It is a property-backed transaction that creates a tangible asset that would be able to provide real security to funders, that is Barloworld and the external debt providers, and would have a guaranteed revenue stream that would ensure Khula Sizwe is able to service its debt. The design of the transaction is to ensure the protection of shareholder value through the reinvestment of available cash. That's after servicing debt, tax obligations, and for providing for budgeted operational expenditures into Barloworld by Khula Sizwe. This should improve the value of Khula Sizwe and protect the BBBEE standing of Barloworld through this lock-in period. Khula Sizwe is restricted from selling any Barloworld shares it acquires until the expiry of the empowerment period, being the period until 2034. Excuse me. Again, this is meant to enhance the value of Khula Sizwe shares, and if Khula Sizwe sells any of the properties, Khula Sizwe will substitute the properties with the shares in Barloworld. The only difference is the shares will now be unencumbered. Note that there are no restrictions imposed on Khula Sizwe on how dividend flow received from the investment in the Barloworld shares can be utilized, including distributing to shareholders. The Khula Sizwe board and management, together with our corporate advisors, have been and continue to evaluate the potential liquidity events for Khula Sizwe, given that the restricted trading period came to an end at the end of October 2024. These evaluations have the primary focus of preserving Khula Sizwe shareholder value, taking into account market conditions, the property sector, Barloworld and Khula Sizwe specific factors and have included the following alternatives. 1, a listing on the JSE or another stock exchange, an over-the-counter full or interim measure. 3, shares repurchases by Khula Sizwe and or Barloworld. 4, market maker roles, etc. Currently, the board has decided to hold off from listing or having a liquidity event because of factors discussed above. The Barloworld scheme of arrangement and standby offer, probably I should just address that now. So the offer structure is like this. The Barloworld transaction involved in a consortium-led acquisition through Newco to delist Barloworld from the JSE and A2X exchange. The scheme of arrangement was the primary method, offering 120 Rand per share. However, a standby offer at the same price was activated as the scheme failed. The consortium composition, the new core is co-owned by Encha, which is the Barloworld CEO, Dominic Siwela's Family Trust, as well as Gulf Falcon Holding, a subsidiary of Zahid Group. The rationale for the transaction is that the acquisition aligns with the Zahid Group's strategy of diversification and long-term investment. It represents foreign interest confidence in South Africa's economic prospects. The valuation, the 120 Rand per share offer price, which will not be reduced for the 3.10 Rand per share dividend declared by Barloworld on 22nd November 2024, represents a total value unlock of 123 Rand 10 cents per share, reflecting an 87% premium on Barloworld's 30-day VWAP of 65.72 as of 12 April 2024, the day before the initial cautionary announcement. The Barloworld strategic implications, Khula Sizwe. So Khula Sizwe will tender, and we have tendered the shares, but we maintain the property leasing agreement post-transaction. So that does not get impacted by the Barloworld transaction. The existing empowerment structures will remain intact, supporting the BEE objectives. The consortium has not made any statement regarding Khula Sizwe's listing or liquidity event. The Barloworld Foundation believes it retains its ownership and continues to focus on transformation initiatives. Management continuity, Barloworld's leadership, brand, and operational strategies will be preserved. Should there be any changes in Barloworld's operational structure post the transaction, such as unbundling of certain business units, Khula Sizwe is experienced in entering into amended lease agreements with the unbundled units, for example, the ZEDA and the NMI. Should the Barloworld transaction not be implemented, the status quo will remain, and Khula Sizwe will continue its work on the liquidity options until an outcome is determined. The board is of the view that it is prudent that the liquidity decision be delayed while the proposed delisting transaction awaits finalization, the Barloworld one, following which the board of Khula Sizwe will continue engagements with the board of Barloworld. The key conditions for the transaction include: 1, approvals of competition authorities in various jurisdictions; 2, the Financial Surveillance Department of the South African Reserve Bank approval; 3, the date for the fulfillment of the conditions is 11 September 2025, unless extended by agreement between the parties. In terms of the transaction agreements which govern the Barloworld Khula Sizwe construct, any available cash other than funds received from Barloworld as dividends must be used by Khula Sizwe towards payment of the interest and the capital on the Nedbank loan, and then to purchase Barloworld shares. Any amendments made to the transaction agreement require not only Khula Sizwe shareholder approval, but the whole while Barloworld is listed, also a guidance 9.1 ruling from the JSE that the amendments are not material and not in conflict with the original transaction, failing which Barloworld shareholder approval would be needed if the amendments are determined to be material or in conflict with the original transaction. This would require a circular to be distributed to Barloworld shareholders, which circular would require JSE approval to amend the transaction terms. Any amendments will therefore be easier to make when Barloworld has been delisted, as it will no longer be subject to the JSE listing requirements. I will hand over now to the Interim Managing Director, Ms. Bateti, to take us through the presentation outlining the performance of the company for the 2024 financial year end, and I will return later to continue with the rest of the AGM. Thanks, Bateti.
Good morning to all our shareholders, board members, our colleagues, and our partners. It is an honor to address you today and to share a business update that reflects both our progress and the path ahead. Despite ongoing headwinds in South African economy marked by a tough trading environment, energy constraints, raising interest rates, and muted business confidence, our company has remained focused, resilient, and forward-looking. We are seeing growing pressure on our tenant with above-inflation municipal cost, shift in space utilization, and a sharper focus on value for money. In this environment, our core objective remains to protect asset value, maintain high occupancy, and ensure we deliver consistent return to our shareholders. South African property market in 2025 shows signs of recovery supported by decline in interest rates and stabilizing inflation, which are expected to improve affordability and boost transactional activity. For Khula Sizwe, which hold a diversified commercial property, the outlook is particularly encouraging in light of sustained demand for well-tenanted commercial assets in core urban location. Rental growth, specifically in strategic nodes like Gauteng and the Western Cape, continues to outpace the national average. Khula Sizwe's exposure to long-term lease structures position it well to deliver steady returns and potential capital appreciation in a cautiously optimistic market. Now, if we look at our gross value of our portfolio, it has increased from 3.2 billion to 3.3 billion. We will explore the contributing factor in the more detail during the financial section. On the funding side, we have significantly reduced the net debt from 2 billion to 1.8 billion. This improvement brings a loan-to-value ratio of 55%, which means we currently hold 44% equity in the property portfolio, which is a healthy position. We commenced the year with 64 properties, and following the disposal of one asset, we closed the year with 63 properties. Our occupation rate remains stable at 94%, reflecting continued demand and strong asset performance. Changes within Barloworld has broadened our tenant base with entities such as Zeda, NMI, DSM, and SMD now part of our portfolio. This diversification significantly reduced our dependency risk and enhances the resilience of our income stream. We are proud to announce that we have achieved level 2 of our BE rating. Moving on to our operating results, we are pleased to report that revenue has shown consistent year-on-year growth. This positive trend is largely driven by 8% rental income escalation, which remains well ahead of the market norm. As a result, we have a healthy increase on our operating profit, reinforcing the resilience and efficiency of our properties. Our operating profit remains solid and steady, underpinned by disciplined cost management and a strong performance of our underlying portfolio. If you look at our net debt, we have made significant effort to reduce our loan exposure, including additional payments scheduled beyond the scheduled amounts. This has been a deliberate strategy to preserve value in the face of high interest rates. Our gross asset value continued to grow steadily, driven by escalation above market rates and improvements made to several of our properties. This reflects the strength and resilience of our portfolio. The effort have resulted in a notable improvement on our loan to value, which has decreased from 63% in 2023 to 55% in 2024. This is a significant decrease as we started at 80% in 2019. And lastly, our net asset value continued to rise, supported by ongoing debt reduction and positive revaluation surplus across the portfolio. In 2023, Khula Sizwe proudly launched a flagship initiative, the Sikhule Khaya Landlord Program. This program has delivered meaningful impact in 2024, reinforcing our commitment to supporting township-based landlord and small-scale property entrepreneurs. The program is underpinned by 3 core objectives. 1, empowering our township landlords through compliance support. Here, we provided our landlord with tailored compliance support and enhancing awareness of legal and regulatory requirements. Secondly, enabling business formalization. This included upgrading and refurbishment of properties to meet a livable standard while promoting professional and in-property management. Lastly, we equipped our landlord with essential soft skills and knowledge to build and sustain successful rental businesses. By inventing this township landlord, we are not only enabling individual empowerment, but we also contributing to a broader social economic development of our communities. I'll now move on to the income statement. We start looking at the revenue. It has increased by 1%. This is driven by a combination of the rental income, the tower leasing, and the solar income. The property-related expense recoveries also remain in line with the lease model that we have in place. When you look at the property-related expense, that rose significantly due to high utility cost, particularly on the electricity, the water, and the municipal rates and taxes. I am pleased to report that our cost control measures have been effective compared to the prior year. We've achieved 41% reduction in overall cost, supported by introduction of the lean operating practices. Despite rising utility costs, these efforts continue to increase our operating profit. Our net finance cost has reduced by 1%, largely driven by additional payments that we've done on our borrowings. If you look at the dividend income, that has come lowest compared to last year. Last year was bolstered by the receipt of Zeda shares as part of the distribution. And if you look at our fair value, there's a significant change on both the investment property and shares. The fair value on properties has reduced by 37% due to the reduction of our cash flow as we nearing the midterm of our leases. However, the shares on the other hand has taken a positive turn, resulting in an increase in value from the loss of 4 million that we reported in the prior year to a gain of 1 million. Moving on to the statement of financial position. Our property portfolio has saw a modest increase from 3.2 billion to 3.3 billion. primarily driven by revaluation gain of 42 million. The investment in listed shares rose from 49 million to 50 million, while the Barloworld shares price decreased at year-end by 350,000. This was offset by the increase on the Zeda shares by 1.2 million. The lease smoothing adjustment continued to rise, which remains a timing-related factor. As leases mature and reach the midterm, this impact will gradually reduce. Debt management remains a priority. Khula Sizwe continues to meet its obligation under existing funding agreements. In addition, a significant discretionary payments were made to reduce the total loan balance from 2 billion to 1.8 billion. This strengthened our financial position, resulting in a comfortable loan-to-value of 55%, well below the covenant threshold of 80%. As a result of this movement, net asset value has increased from 1.5 billion to 1.7 billion, translating into net asset value per share of 31.50 rand. If you look at the last statement, which is the cash flow, our cash collection remained very strong. Our tenant continued to meet the rental obligation consistently. Our largest cash outflow, however, still remains the interest payment on our funding facility. When you look at the investment cash outflow, it is driven primarily by the acquisition of the solar equipment. The cash impact on the solar equipment has partially offset by the sale of one property during the year. And when you look at our financing, we have made a significant repayments towards the debt obligation with a total of 234 million paid, comprising of 2 additional payments and ongoing scheduled payment. As a result of disciplined financial management, we closed the year with a strong cash position of 63 million. As we look ahead, our strategy remains clear and disciplined, anchored on 4 key priorities. The trading environment has been characterized by high interest rate environment, which we are seeing an improvement because we had a series of rate cuts towards the end of 2024. This has led to the easing of the inflation. However, Khula Sizwe to some extent has been shielded by these adverse conditions because of the type of lease that we have in place, which is the triple net lease, as the chair has already alluded to, that all the maintenance and the repairs and the necessary costs are incurred by the tenant as opposed to Khula Sizwe. And the lease term that was running from 2019 until 2029. In terms of our compliance, our goal is to maintain the level 2 BEE rating where possible, improve on this achievement. Transformation and inclusive growth remain central to how we do business. Khula Sizwe will continue to operate with a lean structure and efficient. Khula Sizwe will continue to operate with a lean and efficient structure, allowing us to maintain strong cost discipline. This approach supports long-term financial sustainability and value creation to our shareholders. We will continue to evaluate property located in non-strategic areas, particularly where tenant retention beyond the current lease is unlikely, as we continue to engage with our tenant. As part of our disposal plan, we will repurpose the capital from this asset to reduce the debt. These priorities reflect our commitment to the responsible leadership, operational excellence, and long-term shareholder value. In conclusion, I would like to take this moment to express my sincere appreciation to each one of you, our shareholders, our board members, our partners, our team members, for your continued trust and support. This year has tested many businesses, but it has also reaffirmed the resilience of our company, the strength of our strategy, and the caliber of our people. Together, we have navigated a dynamic and often unpredictable environment while continuing to deliver value, grow our portfolio, and uphold the standard that defined our brand. We remain deeply committed to building not just our property, but community spaces that are inclusive, commercially sound, and aligned with future and urban development in South Africa. I will now hand back to our chairperson, Tanta Sofubu.
Thank you, Bateti. We now come to the voting. In terms of the company's MOI, unless otherwise resolved, voting at this meeting shall proceed by way of a poll. Shareholders were encouraged to submit votes by proxy in advance of the AGM. I would like to thank the shareholders who have submitted their proxies, which have been duly received and recorded. Shareholders who wish to vote at this meeting may do so on the meeting specialist platform communicated to you, and as Nelly explained earlier. Shareholders are reminded that voting is open and will remain open until the end of the Q&A session. The Q&A session will follow immediately after the reading of the resolutions to allow TMS to collate the votes. The session will be open for 10 minutes for question and answer session. I will now read the resolutions. Ordinary resolution number 1, presentation of the annual financial statements. The company's audited annual financial statements for the financial year ended 30th September 2024, including the director's report and the independent auditor's report, are hereby presented at this meeting in accordance with the provisions of the Companies Act and are available for inspection on the company's website. Ordinary resolution number 2, re-election of non-executive directors. The resolution relates to the re-election of a non-executive director who retires by rotation in accordance with the company's MOI and who is eligible and available for re-election. I propose ordinary resolution 2 that Judith Gale February be re-elected as an independent non-executive director of the company. Ordinary resolution number 3 to 5, the election of audit committee members. Resolutions 3 to 5 relate to the election of members of the audit committee of the company who are eligible and available for election. I propose ordinary resolution 3 that Adila Chowen be re-elected as a member of and the chair of the audit committee. I propose ordinary resolution 4 that Judith Gale February be re-elected as a member of the audit committee. I propose ordinary resolution 5 that Khawhelo Lekgabe Khomari be re-elected as a member of the audit committee. Ordinary resolution numbers 6 to 8, the election of the Social and Ethics Committee. Resolutions 6 to 8 relate to the election of the members of the Social and Ethics Committee of the company who are eligible and available for election. I propose ordinary resolution 6 that Judith Gale February be re-elected as a member and the chair of the Social and Ethics Committee. I propose ordinary resolution 7 that Tanda Swafubu be re-elected as a member of the Social and Ethics Committee. I propose ordinary resolution 8 that Khawhelo Lekgabe Khomari be re-elected as a member of the Social and Ethics Committee. Ordinary resolution number 9, appointment of external auditors. I propose ordinary resolution 9, the reappointment of S&G Grant Thornton Inc. as external auditors of the company for the financial year ending 30 September 2025, and to remain in office until the conclusion of the next AGM with Khula Sizwe as the designated auditor. Special Resolution Number 1, approve non-executive directors' fees. I propose Special Resolution 1, the approval of the non-executive directors' remuneration. The special resolution is to consider and, if deemed appropriate, approve the remuneration of non-executive directors for their services as directors on the basis outlined in the notice of the AGM with effect from 1st January 2025 until the conclusion of the next AGM. The proposed fees incorporate an increase of 6.5% from the prior year and are exclusive of VAT. I will pause to take and answer questions from shareholders and allow the scrutineers, TMS, to collate and count all the votes. Yes, please join me.
Good morning.
Good
Thank you,
morning.
Chair.
Good morning.
We have received a number of written questions online, which I will direct to you, Chair, and to Bateti, our interim MD. I'll first start with operational questions. Bateti, if you don't mind, the first question is, if year-on-year increase in rental rates charged was 8%, why is there only a 1% increase in revenue year-on-year?
So if you look at the 1%, it's ideally an increase because the lease model, according to the International Framework Standard of Accounting, we use the lease smoothing, which means from the beginning of the leases, which is 2019, all the way to 2029, it should remain flat because we're smoothing all the income. However, because of inclusion of additional revenue streams, that's why we've got a 1% increase over the last year.
Thank you. Can you please explain the rationale for the disposal of the one property in the previous financial year?
So we had disposal of one property, the on-deckers property that is on Rodeport side. That has been vacant for over a year. It was occupied by our tenant Avis with the agreement of how we're going to restructure our lease going forward. We've agreed with our tenant to relieve them from that pressure because also to reduce the risk on our property with the property that is already been vacant.
Thank you. I would like to maybe just post this note to the TMS team online. I have a question here just asking, where do we find the voting options? Shareholders, you would have received a link to the voting options. If you don't mind, kindly look through your email or your SMSs. If you could, please just sieve through your correspondence. And alternatively, I don't know if TMS is online, whether they're able to respond to me.
Yes, shareholders would have been sent links via SMS and email. So please check both your phone and your email. And also perhaps check your spam folder if it by chance went there. And if you have not received your links, please post a question in the Q&A box and we will try to assist.
Great, thank you. I suppose you can see the 2 or 3 that have already requested, and TMS is attending to that. Thank you, team. I'd like for us to just take a step back, and I'm posing this question to the chair. Just in terms of the relationship between Khula Sizwe and Barloworld, if you could also explain the relationship of the trust beneficiaries insofar as they are beneficiaries in those trusts, as well as how do they relate to Barloworld. So maybe to Khula Sizwe, maybe let's start there. And then we can then flow questions, Chair, in terms of then, 1, how does the Barloworld transaction impact Khula Sizwe? 2, what is the size, how material is Barloworld in terms of asset value to Khula Sizwe? 3, what is Khula Sizwe likely to be
following the transaction at Barloworld. So let's start from the top, and then we can then take it forward in terms of outlining that, because I think there still is a bit of unclarity. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to answer, and if I miss out anything, please just shout, because I didn't write them down. So firstly, the relationship between Barloworld and Khula Sizwe is a twofold. That Khula Sizwe is a landlord to Barloworld, if we remember the property scheme that we talk about. So Barloworld is leasing the properties from Khula Sizwe, so that's the landlord status. Secondly, Khula Sizwe has already started buying shares of Barloworld and bought those shares unencumbered. So Khula Sizwe is a shareholder at Barloworld. So those are the two ways that Khula Sizwe and Barloworld interact, right? And it is very important to note that these are two different companies. Barloworld is a different company to Khula Sizwe. And as a result or as such, the governance around each of these companies happens, at the company and separately from the other one. And I'm saying this specifically for the people or the beneficiaries of both the management trust and the employee trust, who were Barloworld employees in 2019 when the scheme was effected. They are beneficiaries in the trusts, and it is in turn the trustees who represent them at Khula Sizwe. So when we deal with shareholding and shareholder issues from a Khula Sizwe point of view, we deal with the people that came through the Black Public Scheme as well as the trustees from the two trusts. As such, if anyone has questions, confusion about what's happening as a beneficiary of the trust, I suggest that they direct those to Barloworld, not to Khula Sizwe, because we cannot answer for Barloworld. If I remember, the other point was the impact of the Barloworld transaction, right? So, as I've outlined that we relate to Barloworld as both a landlord and as a shareholder. From a shareholder point of view, the impact is that should the standby offer go through, we will have tendered the shares that we have at Barloworld. So we will no longer, after that, we will no longer be a shareholder at Barloworld, but we would have received the money through the sale of shares, and we've indicated that it's at 120 Rand per share, which is a very big premium on where the Barloworld shares were at the time that the scheme was announced. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, from a landlord point of view, as we've said, the construct of this transaction was such that the lease agreements, no one could get out of them for the 10-year period. So irrespective of who becomes the owner, shareholder of Barloworld, those lease agreements that we have will continue right up until 2029. And beyond that, it could be debated and we could come to an arrangement, but those are protected up until 2029. And I think, as Batete has said, and I think last year as well, talked about the ability that we have at Khula Sizwe to negotiate when a tenant would like to, move out of a property. As such, we are able to negotiate terms that are great are advantageous for Khula Sizwe. So we're not really concerned about that. as we are protected by the construct of the transaction.
Thank you. I think the one other question, Chair, that you did not address is what is the value of the Barloworld shares as a percentage of the gross value of Khula Sizwe, to contextualize the impact of this Barloworld transaction on Khula Sizwe?
Thank you for that question. Maybe let me take it, Chair. So that value of the shares, if you look at the balance sheet, really, when we close off in 2024, it was sitting at 50 million. So if you look at 50 million versus the 3.3 billion asset value, it's an immaterial value. So you do the comparison. The total asset is 3.3, and the value of the asset from the shares from Barloworld is 50 million.
Thank you, Ateti. There's a couple of questions here. I take note of the hands that are up. We will come to you. There's a couple more questions that were posted online. First question, and I'm talking thematically, the question of dividends. When can Khula Sizwe shareholders expect to receive dividends?
So in terms of dividends or any type of liquidity, the board would really want to wait until the standby offer at Barloworld has been finalized, because then that gives us one, clarity on the cash flows that we have, the free cash flows, but also it ensures that we don't have to go and ask for permission at the JSE, because then Barloworld would have been delisted. So it makes the whole process not just easier, but cheaper as well. But because going back to the JSE for, the 9.1 governance is a bit expensive. So yeah, we really would ask the shareholders to bear with us, such that we have a better clarity of where it ends or how it ends, and then we'll be able to move forward.
Why have Khula Sizwe shareholders not received dividends to date?
I can take that. So if you look at the founding document, which is the circular, it does indicate that the excess cash that we get has to be utilized either two ways, whether we buy the Barloworld shares or we go and pay down the debt. The dividends that we can pay, it's through the dividends that we receive from Barloworld. So as far as Chair has already alluded to, we have received a small percentage of dividends in the past from Barloworld. But however, when we look at this transaction, if it goes through, it will unlock value for Khula Sizwe, so we can start looking at what the options are available.
Thank you, Mapateti. There's a couple of questions here relating to when can shareholders sell their shares. It relates to the liquidity event, Chair. I think you covered it initially. If you don't mind explaining that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So the liquidity event will happen firstly when the board looks at the prevailing conditions and decides that it is in the best interests of the shareholders to have whatever form of liquidity event that the board decides on. And the reason why the board has not gone ahead with a liquidity event is because as we reviewed, the market conditions, as we reviewed the impact of Khula Sizwe still being within the empowerment period, the 15-year period, and therefore the restrictions that attach to that, we reviewed the discount that the property sector is trading at. We found that the total discount to the value of the Khula Sizwe shares would be up to 75%. As the board, we did not believe that would be the most prudent thing to do, because it would mean that we're taking decisions, and yet we know that those decisions would lead to the shareholders losing value. We could not do that. We have a duty to look after the shareholder value. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move on to the hands that are online. If the team could please unmute Motobise Mtiane. Thank you.
Good.
Motobise. Perfect. Thank you. Welcome. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. I got a question here. It's been too long for you guys. When we try to phone Khula Sizwe itself, they say they don't have any information about anything. They say there will be a meeting. On that meeting, sorry about that. On that meeting, everything be clarified, whatever we're gonna ask. Most of the time, I think this is the first presentation that you guys allow us to actually engage with you live. The other one, when we try to ask the question, we don't have any response. So we are actually blank. We don't even know what's happening there. Why you are taking too long on some of the thing. Even if we send you the emails on something, it's either we don't get a response or we don't get anything. We actually on the dark. How can you guys improve on that one? Because anything called a time frame and timeline, it's been like more than 7 years, if I'm not mistaken, when we placed the shares on the company. But we don't even know when roughly the changes are happening. For instance, if you guys added the property or something, no one notifies. If something happened on the hiccup, no one notifies up until you guys have the presentation and you don't give us a platform to ask a question. When this happened, how can you resolve these things? We are actually in the plan. How can you guys improve that such of the communication?
Thank you, Motobise. That's a good question, Chair.
Yeah, I'll start, and probably Batete can do the operational question. Yeah. So firstly, I really would like to apologize to the shareholders from a communications point of view. It is something that we have self-identified that it needs to improve. As such, we have started with a strong shareholder communication strategy. And I do believe that as shareholders, you will feel and experience the difference going forward, because, yeah, as I said, we have identified that. One other point that probably I would like to pick up on there is, yes, it is a 15-year empowerment scheme. We are in the 6th year, and really, we have had AGMs, so this is not the first one. And at the AGMs, we always update the shareholders who are present about what is happening. I do not believe that it is feasible that the management of Khula Sizwe could come to the shareholders every time there is a transaction that is happening. And that is why we consolidate the information and the feedback, and we bring it to the AGM, because really I guess the time where as the business we are able to interact with the shareholders is when we have the general meetings. Do you want to talk about that point?
Yes, just to add on that, thank you, Chair. I think, thank you for the feedback as well. I think it's important that the shareholders are aware that we do have a contact center. For any queries, please reach out to them. There's a whole lot of information as well on our website on regular activities that we engage with, and the presentation as well. If you want to see the past results, it's also loaded on investor relation on our website. Thank you.
Can I just add, Batete, I'm just thinking I'm thinking aloud. Possibly what we need to think about, even in terms of our communication strategy, is what are the escalation routes that shareholders can have, that can be available to them, should they be saying, we've been to the call center, no one has responded to us, we've sent that email, no one has responded. I think let's think about that, and probably in the newsletter that we will be releasing, communicate on how the shareholders can escalate.
Definitely. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. We'll open up to Zainab Abdullah. If you don't mind unmuting Zainab Abdullah, please. Zainab, can you hear us? We'll move along. We will move on to Percival Mutupi. If we can unmute Percival Mutupi, please. Percival, can you hear us? Let's unmute Percival, please.
Percival,
Percival?
can you please unmute yourself?
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll move on. We will move to Eva Mojekana. Eva Mojekana.
Hi there.
Eva, can you hear us?
Hello, good morning.
Morning, welcome, Eva. Go ahead, please.
My question is very much the same as the previous shareholder with regards to really not just getting any information or able to access any sort of communication from your call center. I've not been able to attend any of the meetings in the last 5 years, unfortunately. So this is my very first, and the reason being that I am concerned about, we were told that we'd be able to access the dividends, sell it, or whether withdraw last year, which would have been our 5th year. And I'm much more even concerned now because of the previous shareholder saying that it's been 7 years, I think, with them. So it calls for more concern from my end because, nobody seems to know when and why and so forth. So my main thing was that, with the fact that, it was very simple to say whatever amount that we invested, could we withdraw the exact same amount? Because then it's starting to scare me as something that doesn't seem to be, I would hate to use words that aren't great, but I'm very, very concerned. So if somebody's saying 7 years and I'm saying 5 years, when are we likely to actually withdraw, to access, to redeem something? I mean, if there is no tangible response to this, then it's very, very worrying. Thank you.
Eva, thank you very much. I think your point on communication is well made. I think also, please, when there are invitations to attend AGMs, you're very welcome to attend, because in the past, the company has hosted AGMs, and although in terms of the liquidity event, it has become a recent pertinent issue. I think that point is well made. There's a couple of comments online that I would like to take, please, and these relate to the operational performance of the company. Chair, shareholders, the Bateti Interim MD, I'm mindful of time. It's now a minute to go to 11. So I would like to, let's talk through the performance. I note here a comment from one of our shareholders appreciating the performance in a tough environment, and I think that is a vote of appreciation on that. I think then, if we don't mind, I'm just going through some of these. There's a question around the NAV. This question comes from a shareholder saying, what is the current net asset value per share of Khula Sizwe? Is there an expected date for trading of the shares? I think the question on expected date for trading of the shares, that question had been previously addressed. But Hetty, if you don't mind, maybe explaining the current net asset value, how that is determined, and how that has evolved over time. And
So-
Chair, that will be the last question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the net asset value per share, it has evolved. If you look at the table, I think it's in one of the financial statement. It has evolved from the beginning in 2019, where it was sitting around 12 rand. It has increased as we continue, which it's affected by two contribution really, which is as we paid it down the debt. Secondly, when we do the revaluation of our properties, when there's surplus on those properties. So that has increased our net asset. So if you look at net asset, we divide it by number of shares that we have in issue, then that value has increased from 12 rand in 2019 to 31 rand 50 in 2024. However, it's very, very important that the shareholders are aware that this is an internal measure. It's not by any means an indication that it will be the Khula Sizwe share price. Because if you start looking at the share price, there is market factors that needs to be taken into account, such as the prevailing market conditions, the type of scheme that Khula Sizwe is, which that's what we term discounts.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Everyone, it's now 11:02. I will bring a close to the Q&A. Thank you for your open engagement. I think the point about communication, Chair, I think that's well noted. I think shareholders can definitely hold Khula Sizwe accountable to that undertaking, as there is definitely room to improve. Chair, I'll bring it back to you in terms of bringing the AGM to the end and the voting results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone. That's the time that we have for the questions. If we were unable to respond to your question, or if you feel we did not deal with your question or respond adequately, please, we request that you kindly contact the JSE Investor Services, the JIS call center, and at the following number, 0800 233 733. So I'm going to repeat the number for JIS. It's 0800 233 733, or email Khula Sizwe at JSE Investor Services, one word, .co.za. Again, I'm going to repeat. Khula Sizwe at one word, JSE Investor Services, .co.za. The updated Q&A will also be updated and posted on the website. And as we have said, please look out for the newsletter and engage with us, as we go along, because we can only get better, specifically with communication as we go along. Thank you very much. Are the results for the votes ready?
Chair, we are ready to proceed.
Thank you very much. Can you please flight the results? Thank you very much. I am pleased to announce that all resolutions have passed. The results are indicated on the screen. The voting results will be made available on the Khula Sizwe website following this AGM. With that, I would like to thank the shareholders for their participation and bring the meeting to a close. Thank you.